But first, let's bring in tonight's panel, influencer George Mamalis and political commentator Camilla Bayley. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Camilla, let's start with you. What did you make of the protests in Bondi?
Nothing makes my blood boil more. I mean, we're seeing a whole bunch of lowlives who need to get jobs. It's a reality. These people need jobs. And they're going out to Bondi, where they know it has a high population of Jewish people, and they're just there to provoke. I use the analogy of poking the bear. So they're just trying to get a reaction, and they're just trying to get, tensions are rising. That's what they want. And I really like what you said. I mean, you look at the pro-Palestinian side and, it's abolishes Australia. They hate Australia. And it's all Palestine and they adore Gaza. And then you look at the, pro-Israel, pro-Australia is what I like to say. They were happy singing the national anthem. There was all this pride for Australia because these people want peace. So ultimately, my heart goes out to the Jewish community because they are sick and tired of having to put up with things that they're not even, they're not out on the streets protesting for. They just want to live normal lives.
Totally. Well, George, is it intentionally provocative to go to Bondi Beach, occupy what is supposed to be a public beach for everyone, to spread division and hate? I mean, what did they think they were going to achieve here?
Hello, Freya. Thanks for having me on today. Look, I'll just say this straight up. I think what we saw today is another example of how the government and their poor policies for over the last 20 years has led to the rise in extremism. And things like imported ideologies have basically created tribalism with our own country. It kind of feels like the war itself has somehow, it's on our shores right now. And it isn't promoting unity. And Australia right now has a huge amount of problems, economically speaking. We have the same economic diversity right now as Mongolia. And these kind of events will just keep happening more and more. And I just want to remind Australians, maybe it's time to start really focusing on our nation and start focusing on nation building again, rather than these overseas conflicts that really have nothing to do with everyday Australians.
Couldn't agree more. Well, we're also seeing in the arts sector particularly, there is enormous pressure on musicians to boycott Israel. There are even websites that have popped up that track which pop stars haven't made statements supporting Gaza, and they are being pressured to do so. Now people are calling for a boycott of Radiohead's Europe tour because they played a gig once in 2017 in Tel Aviv. I mean, so much for the left being tolerant, right? If you haven't said something, now they're going to boycott you. It's not just enough to not say anything, you have to say something.
Exactly right. And I just thought of something really funny. Imagine if Taylor Swift came out and she was pro-Israel. What would the lefties do? I mean, they can't figure out what side they're on. One day it's pro-Palestine, one day it's, the Indigenous communities. But when the Indigenous communities are suffering, it's pro-Palestine. So they can't even figure out what side they're on. And I'd just love to see if Taylor Swift came out and said, I'm pro-Israel, what would they do?
Exactly. And George, we saw musicians like Bob Vylan at Glastonbury on stage chanting death to the IDF, which if you're in Israel, that's basically everyone because they all have to serve in the army. How is that okay? But then if you're just silent, if you just don't want to take a position, which I respect as well, then you're the one being attacked.
You point out some good things there, Freya. The issue is the Labor Party, particularly the Greens Party, are obsessed with never communicating and never for unification. And we see people like the Abby Chatfields of this world, who a lot of the younger population look to for knowledge, calling people racist, calling people even ugly, and using all these derogatory terms. And this is the thing, the woke left for many, many years now, they're never seeming to look for unification. It's always separation. And the only thing that leads to is the rise, I call it the woke right. And we're seeing it all across now with, for example, the March for Australia protests, the rise of the woke right. And it's just going to breed more extremism or more clashes. And the media portraying, particularly the woke media, portraying things like that call to death to the IDF only adds fuel to the fire.
Yeah, totally. Well, Camilla, I want to bring you in here on the issue of shark nets. We saw a tragic event in DY Beach where a father lost his life to a shark attack. Chris Minns has now said they will pause the trial of removing shark nets. But I think the fact that this was ever being considered, doesn't it just show that we're prioritizing the environment, which, you know, we respect, but over human life? Is that really the way to go?
So I think this is completely ridiculous. I think, you know, it almost feels a bit insensitive to talk about shark nets, you know, a couple of days after this incident happened, and it's truly tragic. But I just think we're at a stage where this government is prioritising these radical lefties who think shark lives are more important than that of human life. I mean, we've come to a stage where we are prioritising an animal who couldn't care less about us, would rip us apart if they got the chance to. We are prioritising that animal over children who are going in over the summer to just enjoy their day. It is, I can't even believe we're having this conversation.
Totally. George, your take on shark nets, for or against?
Look, shark nets are not perfect, but they give some level of safety. And I think it goes down to the Greens again. The Greens almost seem to be anti-human at this point, and they rather use symbols to promote how beautiful and awesome they are rather than the actual safety of human lives. And it just feeds more and more into their ideology, and it just grows and grows. And it's quite frightening to the point where we're now seeing more incidents. This summer has been, this whole season has been terrible for shark attacks.
So true. Well, Camilla, the firefighters union down in Victoria wants more diverse firefighters, and so they're asking for extra funding to close the gender gap in firefighting. My question is, why the heck does it matter what the gender of a firefighter is?
I must say, so say I'm, God forbid, in a burning fire. My house is burning down. The last thing that I would be looking for is, oh, is that firefighter a woman? Oh, is it a man? I couldn't care less. And the fact that we're investing more money for women to go in industries that they don't maybe necessarily want to go into. I'm sick and tired, and I think everyone's sick and tired of this woke identity politics. That was so 2020. Why the hell are we introducing this woke, trying to get women into areas they don't really want to be into?
So true. And George, we saw in California, for example, what happens when you prioritize DEI and identity over merit and competence. Ultimately, they ended up with terrible bushfires. The fire department was completely incapable of handling the situation. In a country like Australia, where we do have very bad bushfires, what does this say about the state of our country when unions are more concerned about the gender of firefighters than actually fighting fires?
Yes, you're completely right there. Look, DEI is one of the greatest threats to Australia. And, you know, firefighting requires strength. It requires stamina. It requires judgment. And I'm sure there's plenty of females out there who are brave enough to do this job. But at the end of the day, that shouldn't be the main message. The message should be competence. And firefighting is one of the toughest jobs in the world. It requires the highest level of competence. And you're right, the LA is an example. It's fantastic because they didn't even have water in their hoses. That's how incompetent it was. And that led to deaths, houses being burnt down, and the complete shift of LA forever. So symbolism over substance again, it's just deadly, and it's going to end more lives. So this needs to stop immediately.
George, I want to get your thoughts on this. You sort of touched on the rise of the woke right earlier. Now, the NSN, the neo-Nazis, are running training days in suburban Sydney. But according to the police, recruitment isn't going crazy. They're still struggling, still trying to get more people. But to me, I mean, these guys just look utterly pathetic. Even at the August 31st rallies, when they got onto the microphone in many cities, lots of people left or booed at that moment. How do we instill positive patriotism in young people and reclaim patriotism so it doesn't get hijacked by these nutters?
Look, the woke right, I like to call them, their leader is a pagan. And I've looked deeply into his speeches and talks online, and it's quite clear that he follows pagan ways. And it's unfortunate because a lot of these people who are being recruited are young men. A lot of them are probably incels who've never really had any job prospects. And, you know, depression for men is quite high. So it feels like these poor men are being kind of taken advantage of by this cult-like woke right. And I've tried my hardest to reach out to these people, because at the end of the day, these are humans who are suffering, but they do require a level of communication. That's the difference between the left and the right. The right will always communicate with their far right to try and bring them back to the center. The left hold no accountability over their woke left. They just let them do whatever they want. They let them fester. And this is what adds even more fuel to the fire, because it adds to the frustration of this woke right we're seeing. So yes, I think at the end of the day, the media, the Labor government are loving this, because they get exactly what they want. More excuses to push digital ID, more excuses to put up censorship through social media. And yeah, it's not a good situation we're in right now.
So true. Well, thank you so much for joining me, guys.